welcome back to another episode. My name is Brianne Hendrickson. I have professor from my alma mater, the Oklahoma State University, and now the doctorate, Lauren Klein. Welcome.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for being on today. I'm so glad to have you. You definitely held a big spot in my college career, so I appreciate you being on today.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's kick it off. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into ag leadership and your kind of back history because you are from
Okay.
Florida. So,
I am, yeah. Everybody kind of get ready. I feel like it's a long, winding story. I grew up in Central Florida, a small town called Haines City. So the best way I describe it to people is it's in between Tampa and Orlando. I'm close to the beaches, close to Disney, but I didn't grow up with either of those things in my backyard. I grew up with orange groves and cow pastures. But to kind of explain how I ended up there, how my family ended up there, my mom is actually from Alabama and my dad is actually from Mississippi. And both of them had ag backgrounds doing a variety of things. My dad's family grew cotton. My mom's family, they were more subsistence farmers there in their community, this little town, Blue Springs. But my papa drove trucks for a watermelon farmer out of Florida. And that's how they ended up moving to Florida. And after a long period of time of my papa hauling watermelons, he started his own produce trucking business. And so that's what my family still does today. We haul all kinds of produce across the East Coast and out towards the Midwest. And so I always kind of joke that me and my siblings, while most kids were outside playing, we were oftentimes loading bell peppers out of Immokalee, Florida. Like that was our way of playing. So we were pretending to load produce trucks. Um, but from there, I went to Auburn University. I knew I wanted to study something in agriculture. I wasn't entirely sure. I was kind of that typical kid that started out animal science pre-vet, but I'll be honest, I took an ag law class and I absolutely fell in love with it. And what I found with ag law and some of my ag economics classes is that because of my family's produce trucking business, a lot of that content made a lot of sense to me and I just really connected with it. So I ended up changing my major to ag economics and business. And originally my plan was that I wanted to work in some type of policy development that impacted vocational education, agriculture education. But it was my senior year. My advisor in Ag Econ said, Lauren, you really seem to talk a lot about teaching and you seem to be passionate about education. Why are you not becoming an ag teacher? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't have a good reason. And he's like, I really think you need to look into it. And he was the one that really, his name was Dr. Hardy. He inspired me to start looking at graduate programs. I didn't know anything about going to grad school, but I was like, okay, yeah, I think you're right. I think I really do want to be an ag teacher. And I ended up landing at Texas A&M in College Station and got my master's in agriculture education. From there, I was planning to move back to Florida and I wanted to be a middle school ag teacher. And as I was looking for jobs there, an opportunity came to work at a small private college in Central Florida, about 40 minutes from where I grew up, called Warner University. And I was hired as the director of ag studies there to start their ag studies degree. Um, they didn't have one before, and so I got the really cool opportunity to help create this 4 year diversified ag program that is just doing phenomenal now. It's really cool to look back on that and see how well that program's doing. From there, had an opportunity to return back to Auburn. So again, this is kind of where y'all are getting to travel along with me. I'm circling back to Alabama, but worked for the College of Agriculture there for several years as an undergrad programs coordinator and academic advisor. So led academic advising for the college, did curriculum development, all kinds of fun stuff, and also taught ag leadership there. So I guess I'd back up and say a little bit during my time at Texas A&M, I helped as a teaching assistant with ag leadership courses, and that's really where I was kind of first introduced to ag leadership as a full major. I had minored in it at Auburn, but I didn't know it could be a full major until I got to A&M. Go back to teach at Auburn, and now I'm teaching the minor classes there. And after a couple of years, I just realized that teaching truly is what I'm passionate about. I loved teaching ag leadership, and so decided, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in. Had the opportunity to come get my PhD in ag education at Oklahoma State University, and now am on faculty as an ag leadership faculty member.
So definitely diverse in everything. But why, I mean, you started out ag education and all of that. Why agricultural leadership? What grabbed you and was like, this is what I'm going to zone in on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always describe ag leadership to others as this, that we are the people of agriculture. You know, a lot of times when we talk about what we do in agriculture, we focus a lot on the production side, and that's extremely important. It very much is. Crop yields are important, efficiency is important, but then at the end of the day, we're feeding people, right? And it's people doing the jobs that we have in agriculture. And so I have found myself over the years always being very drawn to the people in the industry and understanding how do we get people to work better together. Because, I mean, one of the benefits of that is that it does make our organizations, it does make our businesses more productive and more efficient when we have good people working together. And so that has been the big draw to me is how can I understand the people in our industry better? How can we increase their capacity as leaders so that it makes our whole industry stronger overall?
So kind of walk me through. Let's let's act like I'm a beginning student. What all can I expect taking these courses with agricultural leadership?
Good question. So, we are a Bachelor's of Science degree. And what that should mean for students is that you are still taking a lot of courses that are science based. And so, in most of our majors, we have a set of courses that we would kind of, in some ways, consider a diversified ag section. Some universities might call it a college core. That's what we call it here. Others, it might be ag electives. But you're still going to take classes in animal science, plant science, soil science, entomology, you name it. So you're still getting a good amount of knowledge in the technical sides of agriculture. But then in the major itself, you're going to be taking classes again that are kind of focused on the people of agriculture. So in our degree specifically, we have courses that are focused on leading in diverse workforces. And so looking at like what are all the things that can make people different and how do we come to understand those differences to make our organizations better. We have courses that are focused on facilitation. And so, specifically, how to teach in what we call informal or non formal settings. So, a lot of our graduates will go on to be in management positions or they might work in nonprofits and do workshops, learning how to put those on really well without having to take like a formal teaching methods type course. Our major also includes leadership theory, so our students do have a good understanding of not just what we mean by leadership, but what has been the research done to get us where we're at. And so they actually learn in that class that a lot of times when we're just talking about leadership traits, that's not really what we mean by leadership. We're looking at how people work together and how they influence each other, what motivation works and doesn't work, a variety of things. So that is a very foundational course in our major. We also focus on what we call change theory. So, how do we understand human behavior and influence change? This is something that is really important to those of us that work in agriculture. When there are new products coming out, new ways of doing things, you know, sometimes we can think, all right, we have all this data that proves this is the better way of doing something. And then we get really confused why people don't adopt that new piece of machinery or why do they not want to use this new seed that we've come out with. Well, it's because we're dealing with human behavior. And so our change theory class helps us understand what the change process looks like and how we can be more impactful leaders in that process by helping people work through that change, by identifying who are the opinion leaders that probably are going to have more influence than those of us who actually came up with the new product. How do we help people see these new products, try them out, observe them working? How do we understand when people reject our new ideas or products? And so it's really all about that human behavior piece. And so those are just some of the examples of the things we talk about in our major.
What is your favorite class to teach?
Oh, that's a really hard question because I struggle with this because every time I teach a class, I'm always like, this is my favorite one to teach. And then I teach a new class and it's my favorite one to teach. I will say this semester, I am teaching what we would call our personal leadership class, but it's called Ag Leaders in Society. I'm teaching it for the first time again in 4 years. And so it feels like a new class to me. But I realize how much I love this class because not only is it helping our students understand their core values and what's important to them, it's then helping them learn how to be, once they know themselves better as leaders, they can be better leaders for others. But we use this course too by highlighting some key figures in the agriculture industry as leaders and using them as case studies. And we always kind of try to change it up, and we specifically try to implement new case studies of people that maybe they haven't heard of in the ag industry. And so I love seeing students learn new things about an industry that they thought they already knew everything about, helping them see the industry from some different perspectives, but then also seeing students leave that class realizing that leadership is not a position, it's their daily actions, and seeing that propel them forward throughout the rest of their college career, whether they're an ag leadership major or not.
So let's say you've already got your bachelor's and everything, and you're just a person, even just watching this, and you want to implement leadership into your daily life. What are some, I mean, I remember taking all the tests and things. What are some things that you would say, hey, this is what you can do to kind of learn about yourself in the leadership role and that kind of thing?
That I would recommend if people are readers. And most of them are available as audiobooks too. So if you'd rather listen to them, you can do that too. The first book that I would recommend, it's called The Practice of Adaptive Leadership. This is one particular theory of leadership that I use to guide most of my teaching, research, and extension here at Oklahoma State University. And the whole principle behind it is that oftentimes when we face challenges in the workplace or with a project that we're doing, a lot of times we approach it as a technical problem. We think, okay, this thing is broke, let's fix it and move on. But what we realize a lot of times in the workplace is most problems are actually adaptive problems. So again, you can have all the technical answers, and even when you're trying to fix it with technical answers, the problem just keeps reoccurring. And it's because you're butting up against people's values and their attitudes. Again, maybe they don't like new technology. And so it doesn't matter how much this new technical solution will fix, they don't want to adopt it because they don't think it's important. So now you're going to deal with people's attitudes or their behaviors or their values. And so this book really helps you figure out like what are those differences between a technical and adaptive problem. And then once you have been able to pinpoint what that adaptive problem is, it gives you some specific leadership behaviors that you can employ to help address that. And so how do you get people to have tough conversations? How do you name the elephants in the room? The things that everyone's talking about behind their backs, but nobody wants to have the hard conversation together in the conference room or over the kitchen table when things are happening. So that would be one recommendation I would make. Another is probably if you're looking for some type of assessment, like personality assessments are always helpful in the workplace. Some are really good, some are really junky. As far as really good ones that I would recommend, The first one would be the Big Five personality assessment. You can Google it online and get the free assessment and take it. And this is a good way for the people that you're working with to just kind of see where y'all differ and provide better understanding of each other. The other that I would highly recommend is the Clifton Strengths assessment. And so I'm actually a certified Clifton Strengths coach. And so that is something through my extension appointment that if people are interested in having administered to them and the people that they work with, that's something that I could help out with.
I just remember taking them and you had us take them at the beginning of the semester and at the end of the semester, and we would see the change and things like that. My mom and I were talking about it the other day. She's like, have you updated your test? And I was like, no, but I'm going to be meeting with Lauren, and she was like, afterwards, you're going to have to take a test and see where you are. Because, we do change so much, and taking on new roles, you see change. How often do you test yourself?
Absolutely. Ooh, that's a good question. What's interesting about a lot of, and I'll just say the really good personality assessments, is that they actually are pretty stable. Like if you take them over a 10 to 20 year period, you're not going to see that much of a variation in your scores. Now, if you take it like every 2 years, there will be little changes because a lot of it does depend on our context. Like I always give the example with my Clifton Strengths. I can look back and, for instance, like one year I might have responsibility in my top 5. Another year I might have dependability in my top 5. But I can think about like what was I going through that year that I took that assessment, and why might there have been a little bit of shift. But when I look at my assessment results over 10 years, 3 out of 4 of the times that I've taken it, responsibility has always been in the top 5. So that's pretty consistent, especially when we're dealing with surveying humans. And so what I tell people is usually you don't want to do it more frequent than 2 years, just because there's probably not enough difference to notice anything. But once you've taken an assessment 2 or 3 times, you're probably pretty good and have a pretty accurate picture of who you are. And again, the benefit of these is for self-awareness to understand yourself better, the things that you are really good at so that you can find confidence in those things. But then also, so then you can realize what are the things that the people I work with, what are they good at? And being able to bring awareness to that as well. What they aren't for, though, is to stereotype each other and start putting each other in a box, and say, well, I can't do that because I'm not, this isn't one of my strengths. Well, that's not the case. We all have the capacity to do hard things and to do things outside of our comfort zone. It should really just be that self-awareness piece and then appreciation for the other people that we work with.
So kind of wrapping up, I just like to ask this question. What does the ag industry mean to you?
Oh, man. It's been a long time since I've answered a question like this. I'm going to have to think for a second. I think without getting overly spiritual about it, the ag industry to me is the opportunity to make the world whole, in the sense that it is through our industry that we have the ability to provide people with the basic needs of what they have. And the reason why I say we have the opportunity is that I don't think we're getting it just right. I think there's always room for improvement. But I think we're uniquely placed in the world through our professions to meet the needs of people where they need it the most, to show people what it means to operate with ethics and with justice in mind. And so, to me, that's why I continue to work in this industry, is because I think we make a difference in the daily lives of people, and our decisions and the impact we have matter.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.